Everyone hear me okay?
Okay.
If you don't care, would you please sign in using the link in the chat?
Let's see. And I don't know that we're going to.
And then we'll begin this meeting with introductions. And I'd like for you to briefly share your name, title, role, your agency, and then your favorite holiday side dish. And I will begin. My name is Jessica Lucas Long. I'm an implementation specialist with the AWARE 2023 grant. I'm with the Kentucky Department of Education, and my favorite holiday side would probably be stuffing. I like the stuffing. So. Gonna go, Margaret.
Sure, I can go. Good morning, everyone. My name is Margaret Sumney. I am also an implementation specialist with KDE and the AWARE grant. And my favorite holiday side dish is probably some sort of potato situation. So maybe like a really creamy mashed potato or a good scalloped potato. I think that's it. Lee?
Hi, I'm Lee Brown. I'm a PBIS ISF consultant, and I think my favorite side is
If everyone could use. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm Christy Toms. I work as a PBISF consultant, and my favorite side dish is probably broccoli casserole.
Doug Roberts, program consultant for Safe Schools here at KDE. You won't know what this is, but my favorite side dish probably is smash. And my niece, my mom cooks cushaw and puts brown sugar and everything, and my niece called it smash. So that's all we know it as anymore.
Cushaw? Is that what you said?
Cushaw.
I've never heard
It's like a green and white big gourd. It's kind of like pumpkin when you cut it out.
Oh, it's got to be.
Oh, okay.
I'm Joanna Jones. I'm with GREC, and I'm a PBS consultant. And my favorite side dish, like you all probably don't even know what this is, but it's grits bread. And it is made with grits, but it doesn't really taste like grits. And it's made with sweet Alfalfa milk that they do sell at Kroger.
Grits bread.
I'm Miriam Silman. I am an executive advisor for trauma and resilience at the Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental and Intellectual Disabilities, and still stay connected to school behavioral health activities. Oh, and my favorite, okay, well, it's really hard for me to pick a favorite, but for Thanksgiving, I always make a ginger cinnamon cranberry sauce that I love. It's super tart, really yummy. I have been known to take it on airplanes.
Karen?
I'm Karen Bush, PBIS consultant, and here at KDE. And my favorite side dish is probably a sweet potato casserole.
Stephanie Bundy. I'm a Healthy Schools Project Director here at KDE, overseeing a grant we received from CDC. Favorite side dish? Well, it was my mom's dressing, but now she's not making it anymore, so I'm a little disappointed like today. She just told me yesterday, so I don't really know now.
Stronger Connections grant, and I love but I like it just straight out of the can. Nothing to it, but it's got to be like the
Boyer, and I coordinate MCSS. And I like a lot of the sides that were here. I definitely like cheesy potatoes, and I like green beans.
I'm Christina Weeder. I'm the director of the Division of Student Success here at KDE. And I think my favorite side is my aunt's mashed potatoes because she puts sour cream and cream cheese in them, I think. So they're like almost like paste. They're so thick, but they're really, really good.
Hi, my name's Kalisa Fitzpatrick. I'm an evaluator with the University of Kentucky Human Development Institute. My favorite side dish is my grandmother's sweet potatoes, but they're made with orange juice. And so it's like a tart kind of sweet tart thing. It's good.
Hi, my name is Alana Morgan. I am also an evaluator at the University of Kentucky Human Development Institute. And my favorite side dish, I think, has to be stuffing.
I'm Amber Bruner. I'm the aware coordinator in Jessamine County, and I am with her. Mine is definitely dressing.
My name's Clay Boone. I'm the aware coordinator for Mason County Schools. And my favorite side dish would be broccoli with cheese with my mother's Velveeta because she makes it very thick with crackers.
My name's Tara Cornett. I am the aware director in Rowan County. My favorite side dish is potato salad and deviled eggs because we have those at every holiday function.
Okay, and if you guys joining us virtually want to come off mute and give us your name, title, role, agency, and your favorite holiday side dish. Chris, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Rush, and I am a school mental health consultant with the Center for Instructional and Behavior Research in Schools. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to have to leave a few minutes early. But my favorite side dish is cranberry relish.
Hi, I'm Jenny Sprang with the University of Kentucky Center on Trauma and Children. And my favorite side dish is a family favorite, which is parsley rice casserole. It's real cheesy.
Good morning, Christy Bryce with Kentucky Avery, and I love my mom's dressing to go with the turkey.
Good morning, I'm Katie Pullman with Midwest PBIS Network, and you guys are all making me really hungry, but I would have to say any kind of sweet potato side.
Good morning, I'm Lori D. Hart. I'm the behavior consultant at Kentucky Educational Development Corporation, KEDC, and my favorite is good old macaroni and cheese.
Good morning. My name is Betty Pennington. I'm the Regional Program Manager with Frisk in Region 4, and my favorite side is mashed potatoes.
Hey, I'm Kristen James. I'm the clinic director at the Rowan County Pathways, and probably deviled eggs.
Hey all, Rachel Bellin, managing partner at the Kentucky Student Voice Team. I love my father-in-law's carrot simmis. Awesome.
Rachel, you have to explain what simmis is.
Gosh, do I? Okay. It's just a mush of sweetness. It includes something called a kishka, which I can't even understand or explain, but it's so good in the middle, and other assorted Jewish flavors. It's very good.
Did everyone get an opportunity to share? If so, we'll move on with our agenda. Looking at our agenda, next we have AWARE 2019 updates, and I don't believe that there are any updates to share for 2019. So we'll move on. Oh, there are some updates. My apologies. So SEA work, there's a no-cost extension that ended on July 29th of 2024. HDI is assisting with the final progress report and closing out report. So there were no updates from our district. So we're going to move on to the AWARE 2023 updates. And we will.
Can I ask a quick question just
Yes.
about 2019? Sorry, this is Miriam. When HDI completes that report, is that a report that the state leadership team can see? Or like what I'm curious about is what are the lessons learned? What's being sustained from that project? Those kinds of things. So even just like an executive summary or something that we could see would be really useful, I think. Is that possible?
Yeah, it's been passed on to state, and I guess they can share that after it's been reviewed, and happy to do whatever we need to do.
It seems like that's kind of part of the intent of these projects is to share that information.
Yes, I actually have some information to share today from AWARE too. If it's
yes, this is perfect time.
If that's okay, I didn't know if it was now or later that we were going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to try to let's see if I can share my screen on this thing.
Go for it.
Let's make this bigger. See if it will. I need to try to zoom out a little bit. I'm zoomed out as much as I can on my end. So all I'm gonna do is this is a zoom out. I'll zoom in and look at some specific sections. But we just tried to put some information together. This graphic in and of itself has some final approvals to go through and branding and logos and that kind of thing. So after that happens, we can share it, disseminate it. So I'm gonna scroll in, see how fast this goes, and scroll up. Seems like there's a little delay, so we'll just give it a second. But essentially, this is taking each of the goals and breaking it down. And you can't really see some of these graphics because of the color, so my apologies on that. But goal 1 for AWARE 2 was really focused on increasing mental health awareness and literacy for those that interacted with school-age youth. And the primary objective there was to complete youth mental health first aid training. So for AWARE 2, we had over 3,500 individuals trained in youth mental health first aid and added 43 of those trainers to the workforce. We did an analysis for the work that was done in Warren County training for youth mental health first aid, and it showed that it did make a difference for school staff to understand like how to address student needs, but they always highlighted relationship building, so we wanted to highlight that. Something else that came out of that work was in Henderson County specifically, the alternative school started working with the Community Mental Health Center there in Henderson County and the Taylor Drop-In Center called the Port. And at the Port, one of the peer support specialists became, I think at that time, the only teen youth mental health first aid trainer in the state. And they started working with the alternative school and training the students. So it's peer-to-peer learning in this type of training. There was also an increased focus on staff well-being to support workforce resiliency. Of course, with the pandemic, there was a shift in focus there. And so there were lots of specific things that took place, but being really strategic with staff check-ins and emotional resets. And one of the districts planned a very specific mental health retreats for their staff and took a few days apart to grow in their team building and supporting each other. Goal 2 did focus on integration of trauma-informed principles into practice. And this in part was largely with the state partner Center on Trauma in Children and Dr. Sprang and her team, and I know she's here. Over 3,700 individuals were trained in trauma-informed practices for educators, and over 1,500 participated in the learning collaboratives for educators as well, which really increased the membership of the Peer Affinity Network. So to support that sustainability of making sure that trauma-informed practices are in schools. I know there's still peer learning that's going on, and our new aware districts, I think, are participating in that as well. We had trainers in the state, 131 individuals became trauma-informed trainers in a district. And we wanted to highlight too, in that in 2 districts, 230 individuals were trained in skills for psychological recovery. And specifically in Warren County, that was a big deal too, with the tornadic activities that happened in December. I think was at 2021, 22. Time flies, doesn't it? So that was a big focus of how they respond to events like that. And of course, it seems like we're constantly dealing with stuff like that. So it was good for them. Goal 3 was looking at that mental health referral pathway and making sure that there was access to those appropriate health services and supports. And I'll try to scroll down again. Just a bit delayed, but we had a total of close to 79,000 students that were screened, over 22,000 students that were referred to services, and you can read those numbers there for students receiving services, which resulted in the 79.2% access rate. Our goal was 77, so that was good. This took into account both district employed and community provider services, so that's a grand total there. And we just wanted to list the screeners that were included. There was some shifting with that, obviously, because what was originally planned after COVID had to be reconsidered. And so there were some thoughts that went into that, but the districts did really rise to that occasion of what do we need to make sure that we know about our students. And so they implemented some new screeners, specifically like the Kutcher Adolescent Depression Scale, when they identified a high need of depression and anxiety services in the district. We saw a big increase. And of course, this doesn't tell this whole story. There's so much that happened, but there was a big increase in harm to self and others assessments, and constantly having to figure out the most efficient ways to get those completed and meet student needs. But the services and supports included individual and group therapies, grief counseling. There was a specific focus on foster care supports, which I'm not sure if that was an original kind of thought, but that did happen. And moving on to goal 4, looking at SEL skills, social emotional learning skills, and making sure that was part of the general education curricula. And then also looking at increasing family and student engagement. So we had 100% of all the elementary and middle schools use SEL curricula. It was more of a challenge in the high schools for reasons that we probably all understand, but a sense of just trying to make sure that students were engaged in that. It was a little bit more of a challenge at the high school level. Another piece of social emotional learning was, excuse me, having the registered emotional support animals in one aware district. So there were 7 that ultimately ended up being present in Warren County. And then Rachel, I know you're going to be speaking probably a little more today, but the Kentucky Student Voice team really worked with each district to elevate student voice through those school climate audits. One I see in front of us, the Moss Middle School, that happened in Warren County, that will be talked about. But really, that work led to the formation of student advisory teams in the district that partnered with administrators. And there was some really nice work happening with student surveys, like understanding that there's more questions we want to ask our students, and then also considering their perspectives in policy development. So we wanted to highlight that. I know I'm running through this fast because I'm not sure of the exact time, but goal 5 was really increasing access and use of promoting that mental health promotion and prevention, how it ties to the multi-tiered system of supports. And there was some work with the integrated, and I just blanked on ISF, Interconnected Systems Framework, thank you. So one thing that that did happen in this school was the policy development was more than we anticipated. So there were 14 policies, and we grouped those as they were related to what you see on this little donut chart. So 4 related to referral pathways, 2 to screening, 2 to consents, 3 to risk for self and other assessments. I'm not sure why I can't get that to scroll further down, sorry. And then there were 3 also regarding community providers. So one thing that was really intentional in the districts as well was the fact that they formed these relationships with the community providers and then took it to the next step of how do we onboard those providers? How do they work with the students in our district? What are the things that we want to make sure that they understand about how to provide services while they're in the school building? How do we track that? How do we understand how long they're here in the building and that kind of thing? So there were more trainings that happened as a result of that. A lot of teaming in the sense of psychologists coming in and having a better understanding of what trauma-informed principals look like in the classroom and how they could connect with teachers and counselors and help in that endeavor. And then we had 19 total community provider relationships that were developed as well. Sorry, I cannot get that to come off, or I would take it off there so you could see the bottom of that. But again, as soon as we get this in a final stage, we can share it, and then that's not going to be that full report, but at least it would highlight some things, and then we can look at that full report as well. I feel like I flew through that. So if there's any questions or anything, I'm glad to try to do that.
Thank you for that update. That's a wonderful update. My apologies for skipping over you there, Calissa. We will move on to our agenda. Are you back up there?
I'm working on it.
Okay. So moving on to Aware 2023 work. We have some SEA updates. As we've mentioned, there's the closing out of Aware 2 or 2019 grant. And then with the Aware 2023, we've got Q4 reporting complete, so the 4th quarter reporting complete with Aware 2023. The annual report being completed and due to SAMHSA in December this year. We are in the process of rolling out restorative practices program, and we have an upcoming restorative practices for educators training in August 2025, and then a restorative practices train the trainer being scheduled for September of 2025. Youth mental health and adult mental health trainings coming up. Youth mental health, these are train the trainer programs with NatCon on April 22nd and 23rd, and then adult mental health first aid on June 3rd through June 6th of 2025. And then we're in the process of working to develop a universal screening trainer with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental and Intellectual Disabilities. And then Margaret and I will be attending the Catch My Breath Train the Trainer this month, and we'll be able to provide vaping prevention to trainings to districts later this month. And let's see, first on our list of LEA updates is Jessamine County.
Are we, I think, committee updates first?
Oh, my apologies. My agenda's
So
off. Okay.
today, the ISF committee is meeting at 1 to 2. Tara Ruckert will be here discussing House Bill 142 and vaping prevention. I've been told she's the vaping prevention guru, and so we're excited to have her today. And we welcome all of you to join if you're able. And we'll be meeting in here. And we hope you can join us today.
Can you forward that meeting invitation to folks?
Yes.
Okay, Mental Health Outreach and Awareness Committee. That's.
It's Lauren.
That's
It is Lauren.
Yep, and she is not here today, so, Youth and Family Engagement Committee, does anybody have anything to update for Youth and Family?
Yes, at our last meeting, we reviewed the action planning template that lists the SSFI domains, and we want to work on this after the next committee planning meeting. And the attendees were asked to think about what additional Y and FE specific activities they might like to add. Our next meeting is December 9th. And that's all. Elizabeth, do you have anything to add?
Elizabeth's not
Okay.
here today.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Amber, did you have anything for Mental Health Outreach and Awareness?
We are still putting out the quarterly newsletter. Our next newsletter will go out before January 1st or in there. And then we also talked about the SSFI, and we have two what we thought were goals. I think they're actually activities. The first one is just to make sure that mental health providers have an understanding of PBIS and MTSS, and looking at how we can help support our CMHCs with that understanding. And then the second is focus on physical wellness and health within the implementation of PBIS, and bridging that gap between mental and physical health and wellness for kids. So that's as far as we've gotten. In our next meeting, I think it's next week.
And our Sustainability Committee?
So we have completed our work with REACH, and Elizabeth helped us finish that. Elizabeth Watchell, we finished that. We are looking at action planning for SSFI. Our committee usually meets on the fourth Thursday, so it happens to fall on Thanksgiving and Christmas the next 2 months. So Elizabeth Freeland and I are talking about combining two committees in meeting in December, but she has not given me a date yet. So.
Okay. And we will move on to our LEA update, our 2023 AWARE grantees. So we'll start off with Jessamine County.
Okay, so excuse me, we had an amazing Department of Student Service retreat at the beginning of our school year. We did things a little differently and really brought in some partners from KDE to talk about the early warning tool and insights, and also brought in Dr. Sprang, allowed us to partner with her, and did some window of tolerance training for all of our mental health providers, which was excellent, very well received for them, and just a really good day of learning for everyone, and a way to start the year off on the right foot. We have an onboarding process now for therapists who are coming into our schools. So we're not only meeting with the clinical directors, but we're actually meeting with the boots on the ground therapists who come in. And that's been really eye-opening and encouraging, and have developed some great partnerships that way. They, when you're from an outside agency, to understand school is a whole new world. And for us to understand them is a whole new world. So it's been a great partnership to provide that training. We had a great School Safety Week proclamation. I think it made it up to the state level in the KDE News, and a Unity Day celebration there, where we some of our sources of strength students and community leaders came together to just say we're all in it for school safety. So that was an awesome day and proclamation, and a good week. And then we started that needs assessment and resource mapping as a district and for our 3 pilot schools. And Beck Whipple and our new Vista Prevention folks came and provided training for all of our school psychologists, family resource youth service center coordinators, and counselors in Code Red, so that they can then, as our second suicide prevention training for students, do that for them this winter. So most of them will be this December for our students. So really trying to make that language universal as a support for our county. And then we also have known that when we hire new staff throughout the year, we should
train them in more than just kind of onboarding of being a employee. But we have a process now, and so we're doing that monthly for classified and quarterly for certified. And we, our student service team is a part of that training now, where we're doing trauma-informed care and PBIS and helping people see those processes as well. So that's exciting. Active consent. I don't think I need to say anything else about that. That's just a roadblock. Merging and aligning, just anytime you bring in something new, aligning it with what you're currently doing and understanding need and trying to not make it more but a part of is definitely something we want to work on. And then just finding efficient ways to keep data around referrals. We do have a lot of agency partners, which is wonderful, but keeping up with all of that in an efficient manner is a challenge. And so still working on what that needs to look like. We are excited. Cybers is coming in to help us with those resource maps, and that's making a lot more sense to me to understand how to help support that. So anytime we can have high quality maps, faces that are doing it well, it's always nice to see that, how they're doing. We've had check-in, check-out for a while. Lee had actually come several years ago now, though, and we have such new, just making sure that we're actually doing that with fidelity. And then just being able to sustain our mental health positions with funding and changes of funding and braiding funding and understanding how to do that. So that's definitely something we're trying to figure out as a district.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can I make one? So some of you know that our division also administers Title IV-A. So I've always want to try to make connections with some of this work with Title IV-A. And since I noticed the piece about the aligning the needs assessment for AWARE with the needs assessment for your school assessment model, just for everyone, also keep in mind that Title IV-A, you can think about how that needs assessment can work for you with your Title IV-A requirements around needs assessment, because we want you all to be able to not have to redo all these different needs assessments. And so just think about that alignment piece too.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina.
Clay?
All right. Our achievements and opportunities, I want to start with our district behavioral health team developed our MOUs with multiple partners, including Comprehend, Mountain Comp, and Kentucky Counseling Center to provide access and utilization for layered supports for Tier 2 and Tier 3 services. And we've been meeting with the expectations with Kentucky Counseling Center and Mountain Comp over the last month, and that's gone very well, especially with data tracking and how to help track that data through both of those supports through community mental health partners. And then Comprehend, of course, we're continuing to work with them and working closely in all our district schools with those. Our district level therapists, which we've now, I'm excited to announce that we've got multiple therapists, and we've implemented Tier 2 supports with utilizing small group implementation for focus groups using evidence-based practices. And we've really done a tremendous job early on this year developing SEL groups and Tier 2 groups for all our kids. And we've gone from working with kids with anxiety to just any area that they need support. And the group of therapists that we have been real supportive. Implementation of PBIS rewards with weekly positive messages being sent home to students and parents. PBIS language and expectations are reviewed with students weekly. And one of the things that we really challenged our staff to do was, even in after-school programs and an extension of different programs, even our Boys and Girls Club, to really focus on the language and the expectations, and carry the language and the expectations over into those programs. And we've done a really good job with that, and I can see the success with that. And our kids really like the reward store and how they've done that. And our specifically our middle school has done a great job of building relationships through PBIS, and it's ongoing right now. I really love what we're doing as a district with our PBIS. Participation in Mental Health Awareness Night at the football game with multiple partners, along with the Smile Club to support community mental health. We actually invited Round County to this, and we had all our community partners come out, and everyone set up a booth to make sure that any kid that came through, and we had a huge crowd that night, but we gave out glow sticks and all kinds. We face painting. We did everything to help build community mental health in our region. And we actually, with the Round County cheerleaders, we dazzled the Round County cheerleaders up, and they enjoyed that. And I learned how. I did a little bit of face painting, but I had our entire group work with everyone to help support our community mental health night there. The implementation of DESA-2, our universal screener for the entire district to focus on strength-based social and emotional competencies. We are done a really good job. We are 95% in the district of getting that rolled out in our elementary, our intermediate, and our middle school. Our high school, we're getting there. Just a little bit of our senior class was the most difficult part of getting all those taken care of within the screening itself. But the raw data that I'm getting from the DESA-2, and I'm a data person, I was really glad to see what the data looked like and how it was coming back and how we can support our kids, especially with the SEL at this time. We're participating in upcoming conferences in the advanced school mental health, and we'll be sending a team to Florida in the next month for that. Our SHAPE assessment, we conducted and implemented resource mapping and district needs with community behavioral health services to identify gaps and needs. We had a lot of support and from our implementation specialist, as well as Chris Rush from Cybers, and Megan Martin. So I really appreciate everyone that helped with identifying the gaps and needs that we needed within our district. And then Mason County Schools will be participating in the Northeast Regional Youth Mental Health Summit. Our theme is My Best Self. The summit is a collaborative effort of many agencies working in Northeast Kentucky around youth mental health, mental and behavioral health prevention. I'm looking forward to that, and that is next month. And we'll have a lot of kids from our Smile Club as well as other programs being involved in that program. And the last thing there is our implementation of Check and Connect with Fidelity for mentoring students that show early warning signs of disengagement from school and learning or who are at risk for dropping out. And I think we have everybody finishing right now their mentorship program with their online, just the online work that they needed to do. And we're in the early stages of that right now. So I'm looking forward to pushing that out in the next few months and getting that rolling. So roadblocks and solutions, determining the SEL programs and curriculums to support Tier 1 and Tier 2 services that are evidence-based with Fidelity, continuing to work on universal screening with DESA-2 with the focus on impact data, being able to access, review, act, and progress, monitor the data clearly to address strength-based needs of our students. One of the things that I've requested DESA do, they're piloting their mental health screener in April of 2025, and I've requested Mason County become a pilot program for the mental health screener, and then I need to see how we can build on that as well. We're continuing to build upon referral pathways with community-based partners with the emphasis on tracking referrals and follow through with services. And that's been one of the challenges that I've had just with our community partners right now. And we're working on data tracking, to really focus on making sure that we can track that data correctly. And then I don't have any current needs right now.
Okay, so
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say Tara with Round County.
Okay, yeah, I'm with Round County. So we have put SEL coaches in each of our buildings, and we continue to see positive results from that, not only from the students, but from families. Our local newspaper news outlet highlighted our work to improve trauma-informed practices in our classrooms after our trauma-informed care plan was presented to our board members. We have been gaining recognition from Character Strong in the work we are doing with our SEL curriculum. Our schools have been really excited about that, especially our elementary schools. We delivered suicide prevention lessons by utilizing Erica's Lighthouse in our middle and high school. This allowed a few students to come forth with struggles that either they or their friends have faced, and we've been able to ensure that appropriate services have been offered. One thing we're stressing in Rowan County is making sure that we are trying to pinpoint those kiddos that may fly under the radar and maybe internalize things more than externalizing it, and this definitely helped us in doing that. 4 of our district behavioral health team members attended the Code Red training on 10/24. We are linking our PBIS work to our SEL curriculum. We've been very intentional about that this school year, and it's made it easier to implement it with fidelity. Our elementaries are using like character traits and things like that from Character Strong, and like to give students recognition, and we're also doing that recognition with our school staff as well. We're allowing students to pinpoint maybe teachers or staff members that are showing responsibility or gratitude or respectfulness. We are partnering with AHEC and UK St. Clair for their behavioral health symposium. They've asked us to come and talk about AWARE with our community, as well as what we're doing with suicide prevention. Some roadblocks and solutions that we're working on. We're really trying to create new habits with our school employees of tracking our school-based therapy referrals to our CMHC. We've had a wonderful partnership with Pathways for many years, but our school employees are so used to doing those referrals by word of mouth, and now we're trying to create new habits so that we can all track those better. We are learning our Sabers and My Sabers platform. That has been completed with our schools for kiddos who were opted in, I believe, last Friday. We're all trying to learn that platform. We're learning as we go and just kind of deep diving into the data. Some roadblocks we've had is getting those opt-in forms back and permission given for us to administer these screeners and use our Bloom Sites platform. We plan to redistribute those before our Christmas break, only to the students who either did not opt in or didn't return the form, so we can hopefully get a few more of those back. As of right now, we're good as far as current needs. We're just gearing up to start work on our year 2 goals.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and then next, we are going to hear from Rachel, and I'll stop sharing my screen so you can share your slides. And I'm excited personally to hear about the school climate survey that they've done. So take it away.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for giving me a little time and space today to share some of the work we've been doing in Warren County. I'm Rachel Bellin. Again, I'm the managing partner of the Kentucky Student Voice team, and I'm calling in from Austin, Texas, where I'm visiting some family. We have a little internal rule at the Kentucky Student Voice team that we always try to pick a single dimension, either all in person or all virtual. I'm violating that rule. I know it's a little challenging to follow for people on different dimensions, but we're going to do our best today. I wanted to talk with you and share some of the work, and I want to do that in 3 ways. So first, I want to give people who are newer to the SLT a little bit of background of the Kentucky Student Voice team and the rationale behind our youth-led education research. Then I want to give you an overview of specific student-led research that we've been doing that focuses on school climate at both the school and state levels. And then finally, I want to share the research we supported at Moss Middle School in Warren County and walk you through an activity in a very abbreviated way, give you a taste of what we do with the students who lead this research and the students in their schools who are the targets of the research that they do. And the hope is that you can consider how you might apply elements of the work in your own sphere of education influence. Okay, next slide, please. So the title of the slide is Who We Are, we always like to say it's more accurate to say who we are now, since we've been growing at a pretty rapid pace since we established ourselves as part of an organization which many people here already know well and love as the Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence. After 8 years there, as a program in early 2021, we spun off into our own youth-led independent organization. We are fully independent of the Pritchard Committee, and ever since we have been known officially as the Kentucky Student Voice Team. At any given time, the team represents about 100 Kentucky students, mostly middle school through college age, along with adult allies. And members, this is really crucial, they're not anointed or appointed. They don't apply to be on the team. They are entirely self-selected. Next slide. Mission of the Kentucky Student Voice Team, it's an admittedly ambitious one. We believe that young people who spend 35 hours a week in Kentucky classrooms can and should contribute to making our schools and communities better. As stated more explicitly on the slide, this is the mission statement that the team wrote themselves. The goal is to co-create more just, democratic schools and communities as education, research, policy, and storytelling partners. Next slide. At the heart of everything the team does is listen to other students. It is not about, at the end of the day, the students who are on the Kentucky Student Voice Team. It is about their power and their obligation and their responsibility to figure out ways to listen to other students. Because we consist of only 100 or so young people, and because we do admittedly tend to draw students who are successful in school, we know our members themselves cannot possibly represent the entire Kentucky student experience. That's why one of our key strategies is to reach out to other students from all backgrounds, and that's partially in the form of the research that we do, surveys, student-to-student interviews, and roundtable discussions, like the one pictured on this slide here with immigrants and refugees at a Louisville high school. Throughout all that we do, there's a real emphasis on amplifying and elevating the voices of students who are among the least heard in our schools. Next slide. What we do with those voices and stories we collect is we share them across a whole range of platforms, from social media, podcasting, and blogging to op-eds and policy reports to presentations like this in Kentucky and actually across the country too. And just to give you an idea, since we started over 12 years ago, this crew, primarily Kentucky teenagers, has been responsible for over 75 published newspaper columns, 200 local and national presentations, 13 policy research reports, 3 statewide Capitol rallies, changes to 3 state laws, an independent education journalism platform, and podcast staffed entirely by Kentucky youth, and even a book. Okay, that's the background. Next slide, please. So for today's purposes, we're going to focus on just one of the many ways we seek to amplify and elevate student voice and perspectives in Kentucky, and that is our student-led education research in general and our school climate audits in particular. So let's start with the particular. This is one of the most consistent, back one still. This is one of the most consistent and most consistently powerful things the team does at the school level, and it's something students on our team pioneered about 9 years ago, and we call it the student-led school climate audits. Okay, back, stay on the slide. Crucially, it's also work that's been supported by Project Aware funding in this network for the last 5 years running. The work fundamentally involves surveying and interviewing students and staff on issues related to everything that makes a school a community, including but also going well beyond academics. And then we share back what we find with the larger school community. The model also involves teaching student researchers about things like survey design, school climate and culture, and the meaningful role students can and should play in co-creating that climate and culture. And the big picture hope is to kickstart conversations about how to make school work better for everyone. We've been doing this in schools for many years now, but ever since the pandemic, we adapted the model to take fuller advantage of virtual spaces. And now, instead of sending a team of students from the Kentucky Student Voice Team to lead the research in other people's schools, as pictured on this slide here, which we did at a Western Kentucky high school, we coach and support research teams to conduct school climate audits in their own schools. Whatever the iteration, though, we are committed to a single purpose. We think that supporting students to shape and improve their own school climate from the inside out is the best, if not only, way to ensure our schools are the safest, most inclusive, and most engaging places to learn. And we try to do all that we can to support more students beyond our team across Kentucky to lead the charge. Next slide, please. In just a minute, I'll focus on the work that we did at Moss Middle, but I wanted to note too, something that some of you already know, but in addition to adapting the original school-based school climate audit model for the virtual space during the pandemic, we also figured out ways to scale it. And so from 20 to 22, as we were working with students in 4 districts to lead these school climate audits, we designed 2 pretty major statewide studies that looked at elements of school climate from especially topical lenses. The first was our Coping with COVID study. And in this case, in the months after Kentucky schools shut down for COVID, we decided that as Kentucky students were facing unprecedented challenges learning from home, we needed to figure out a way to capture and share what students were experiencing to shape education decision-making. So over 10,000 students from nearly every one of Kentucky's 120 counties responded. And we've since shared those results from our study with legislators and superintendents, education advocates and researchers, mental health professionals, teachers, parents, and students in Kentucky and across the country. And the team has also published the findings in a peer-reviewed journal and presented them to the American Education Research Association. This is big. I mean, this is school climate going really deep and really broad. Next slide, please. The second statewide scaling of the school climate audit process was an examination about an issue that kept surfacing in our school climate audits. And that was how students were navigating issues around race and ethnicity in Kentucky schools. So our team launched the Race to Learn study in the midst of heated local and national conversations. Many of you recall them very well, about whether and how to discuss the history and legacy of racism in school. The goal was to capture the ongoing experiences of Kentucky youth to better inform public debate and discussion around the subject. So drawing on what we learned from the other research and in combination with a number of adult research experts, the team designed our race, ethnicity, and school climate student survey. This was, again, a survey that opened to the public, and by the time it closed in just 2 weeks, a remarkable 10,725 middle and high school students from 114 Kentucky counties had responded. And that's to say we collected what is essentially a gold mine of student perspective and data. Next slide. Along with the Coping with COVID work, we were very intentional. We're always trying to be very intentional about sharing back results with students themselves who participated in creating those results, but also with policymakers and the general public in a super timely way as soon as we complete our analysis. With the school climate audits, this is something we try to do within about 3 months. We did this also with our statewide studies, so we are working around the clock. Time matters. This is not designed just for other academics. Pictured here is a shot of the team presenting results on the steps of the Capitol Annex in what we called our pop-up press conference in the spring of 2022. This was an event that was covered widely by local journalists who used the data as a counter-narrative to many of the conversations that were happening during the legislative session that were all about students, but did not otherwise seem to take student perspectives into consideration at all. So I share these examples today to underscore how powerful it can be to democratize, as we say, democratize the education research process. Magic can happen when we bring students into education research design as co-creators in addition to research subjects, and the impact's further enhanced when researchers are engaged as messengers and sharing what they find with targeted audiences. So we're going to go to the next slide and talk about what we did in Warren County. So to be sure, these statewide youth-led research studies are exciting. They generate a ton of media attention, but it's the quieter climate audits at the hyper-local school levels that deliver the most, probably the most valuable data of all. And so that you don't have to take my word for it, I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you what we did with AWARE funding. And also I want to really give a shout out to Casey Yates, who I believe is in the room, our LEA in Warren County, who has really helped make this happen on the ground with us. And I want you to just see and judge for yourselves what the team did. So what did we do exactly? This slide explains it in a nutshell. On the heels of the AWARE-supported similar work we did in North Bullitt and Henderson County high schools, we led a series of weekly virtual coaching sessions with a team of middle schools. So Principal Rita Daniels at Moss Middle School helped identify a diverse research team of 7th and 8th graders, 12 of them, and arranged a standing meeting time for us to connect by Zoom. And so we began laying some foundation around research design, school climate, and the role and possibilities around students informing both. These were sessions that I led or I facilitated with Dr. Daniela DiGiacomo from the University of Kentucky School of Information Science. It so happens that Daniela, and she's on the screen here, as you can see in that Zoom, she's a longtime KSVT research partner and a national expert on community action research. So she's been an incredible partner for years with us. The sessions ultimately led to a student-designed school climate survey and analysis, an infographic-laden snapshot report, which many of you in the room have, and I'll put in the chat in a minute for those on the Zoom, and most importantly of all, a shareback session, which will simulate with the room and the Zoom in just a minute. Next slide. Slide back. Oh, there. No, that's good. That's good. So I just wanted to, as we try to hew to the best research practices always in all that we do, I want to share a few methodology limitations at Moss Middle School, because there definitely were a lot. So first, new legislation passed about a year ago determined that now parents need to opt in and not opt out of any school-wide survey remotely related to health and well-being. That was new for us. We typically were able to get at least half of every school we surveyed to participate, no problem. Now our survey samples were plummeting because it depended on students taking home permission slips and getting them signed and brought back. That added a barrier. There were language barriers. This is an incredibly diverse, language diverse middle school. It's amazing how many languages are spoken. That's in the report, you'll see. But that also created a barrier for parents to get those signatures. There was the solar eclipse right in the middle of all of this, so that was disruptive for one of our meetings. So that didn't happen. The meeting times are always a challenge. Sometimes it involved pulling students out of existing classes because there was a determination that the research team needed to meet all as one during school. Technology, always a challenge. We wanted every student we wanted one-to-one interaction, so everybody needed their own device. Unlike the setup here, we wanted to be able to talk to everybody one-on-one. And there were challenges with doing some of the interviews, just in terms of skill levels with 7th and 8th graders. And so it required just a lot of scaffolding throughout. So with that, I'm going to actually stop the share, or can we stop the screen share for a second? Okay, thanks. And I want to call your attention to, everybody should have this handout, and I'm going to put it in the chat real quick. This is for everybody on the Zoom. That's your link, that second link to the report. And I want to do the exercise, as I say, that we do with the students themselves. This is going to allow you to take a few minutes. I'll give you like 3, which will seem interminable for you, but it's really nothing, as you know. And know that we give students, of course, a lot more time to do this. I'm just going to give you 3 minutes on the shot clock. And I want you to look at the survey and just really in silence. I want you to process this. Again, this is like dead air time. You don't do this on Zooms, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm desperate. So spend a little time with this, sit with it, and just be thinking about what's resonating with you and why. And I just want to process this with you together. You have less than 3 minutes now. You have 2.5, but I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to mute myself. Okay, you can still look at it while I'm talking, but we're going to do, so this is typically what we'll do in a school. We will share back this beautiful infographic-laden report, and we will have student facilitators at every table. We'll do it usually in a library or a media center. And we'll have, from 50 to 100 students in a room. We'll have a facilitator at each table, and students are leading the conversations with other students about making sense of what they found. And remember, it's their data. Like, the student facilitators are the ones who designed the study and analyzed the results first and figured out how to present them back. So they are leading this conversation, and then we're having a large group discussion after they've time to process it in small groups. So just to simulate a little element of that, I'm going to ask, I think Miriam Silman can be my in the room wing woman, maybe. Okay, Tammy was afraid that I was going to call on her. Okay, bye, Tammy. But Miriam, if you can help me, I would just like to hear from a few people in the room, and anyone on the screen, of course, can unmute because that's much easier. And let us know if you have what resonates with you, if anything, when you look at the results of what you're reading at Moss Middle School.
They're opening it up to our in-person.
Yes, and Miriam, you get to like use the Socratic method since you're in the room.
I just noticed that there was, social safety and physical safety were very equal concerns. And when you look at ideas for improvement, there was a lot about that environmental space, like cafeteria, cleanliness, just how students and peers interact with each other. So it was, not, what jumped out at me was not the academic piece. It was all the other pieces of their learning environment. So it's very important.
Thank you for sharing that, Kalisa. If that's Kalisa, right? I can barely see.
Yeah, yes.
Is that you? Okay. So to you, when you think about those two pieces, and just so you know, in some schools and high schools, those two are very different. The emotional and physical space feelings about emotional and physical space is very different. Typically, emotional social space is much worse in a lot of schools. But what do you think when you see that? Do you think that those are sort of actionable? Like, are there solutions that come to mind for you? Are there ways a school might be able to respond to that data?
Well, the bugs jumped out at me. I'll be honest. I saw that.
Yeah.
That's pretty actionable thing.
I know, for real, right?
Yeah, it looked like there was maybe some concerns about. There was one comment that was like they appreciated the options, but there was another comment about students like cutting line or something like that. So I know that's your typical kind of middle school cafeteria, but I'm wondering, like, just processes, maybe there's something to be paying attention to there, and considering their social safety in that particular time of the day.
That's right. And we'll talk about this more in a second. I want to hear from others, just what, if anything, resonates with you, because you can take a lot of different things away from this report. I'd like to hear from a few others.
So Rachel, I'll jump out and say that on the page that says rules at the top, I was struck by the fact that 75% of respondents felt that the rules themselves were fair, but merely 50%, 48% said that they were applied unfairly. And that, I think, is absolutely actionable, but difficult also. And so, some further exploration about who's getting nailed more frequently or not. And there was some reference to dress code. That's one place where I think there's a gender difference in how it's applied and some other things. But I think that would be something I would want to elevate to staff.
Yeah, I'm so glad you pointed that out. And, Miriam, like because you've been following our work so closely for years too, that this is an issue, like that dress code unfairness thing. It seems so petty to a lot of adults, and it looms so large to so many students. We've talked to thousands across the state. Like, it constantly comes up organically. It makes me think as an adult too, listening to this, like, can we not at least acknowledge that it's an issue for people? Like, it's like, even the very act of seeing the data and sharing the data back and being able to have space to talk about it is an important act. Like, the process is a big part of the product of this work. Whether or not you really can identify actionable solutions, but it does get at the idea that maybe you can. Thank you for sharing that. I'll call on somebody on the Zoom since I can do that. How about Kristen? Anything stand out for you? Anything resonate for you? She's on the Zoom, Kristen James. Oh, do you not think I was going to call on you?
So whenever you all share like the presentation stuff, I can't see it.
Oh, okay. The truth comes out. Okay. I'll
I've
make
just
sure you
been
get it.
listening and
You're
trying
okay.
to take away what I can with it, but I
Okay.
don't know how to.
You're good.
see what
You're
you share.
good. Anyone else
You
on
know,
the Zoom? Betty?
Yes. I was wondering what the students said about the 25%. Say that most students at Moss rarely or never show them respect.
Yeah. Like
I was
that's not
wondering
a-
what their thoughts were. I thought that was a great percentage that the student, relationships and things like that. But what was their thoughts about that? And
Yeah.
what did they think that would be helpful in changing that?
So that is a data point that jumps out at me too, 25%. So part of the conversations that they lead with each other is about that. And one of the things we try to get them to think about is, does it matter that this is a minority of students? It's only a quarter. I mean, 75%, and in middle school, you're learning about statistics and data and what fractions are and still. So that's like applied math right there. But does it matter? Why should it matter? Is that a lot? Is that a big number, a little number? Does that surprise you or not? That's part of the conversation they have to have. And what we found at Moss and what we found in most every school we've done this in is that again is super validating for people to know they're not alone. They're bullied. I mean, it's not a good thing and it's definitely not okay, but guess what? There are plenty of other people in the school who are feeling the same way as you do. And then it prompts people who are in the dominant culture, who are not having trouble, to think about what they can actually do, not just what the school can do, not just what educators or administrators can do, but what can you do as a peer, if anything, about some of these issues. We won't go much deeper because we just don't have time, but there are a set of guiding questions in the report that guide the students in their own conversations that I think are really helpful. And it's the kind of thing that we hope, not only can students do this anywhere, anytime with other students, pretty easy to walk through this data with peers, but also it's something that a school can replicate. We are wanting to have a meeting with North Bullitt students on Friday at the high school because in the wake of doing an audit there, they're interested. They have a student advisory council, as Kalisa referred to earlier, and they're looking at ways to possibly like continue a study like this and maybe use it as a baseline year to year and see if let's like beef up student councils so that they're doing more than prom planning, right? Maybe this is the kind of thing that they can help work on and exercise some real agency and leadership over the school climate and culture. There are so many possibilities to this work, but I hope you can just get the tiniest taste of what the potential is. Again, we place a real emphasis, but one of the guiding questions is on, what about students who hold perspectives or opinions that are in the minority? Is it important to amplify their voices the way we have done in this report, or would you have presented them differently and why? So getting students to think about that. And then another question in there, what obligation, if any, do students who do feel seen and heard and included in school have to create a better environment for those who do not? We typically find people who feel seen and heard at school are shocked that so many students in their school don't. Like it's a complete world shocker. They're gobsmacked. And vice versa. We find that students who feel unseen and unheard are amazed that so many others in their school share that sense of vulnerability. So hopefully a report like this does lead to more actionable solutions. At Moss, we shared it with about 50 students in the library. The principal was there, Casey Yates was there, and the principal did pledge publicly that she was going to use this to help guide her student advisory council starting this year. So that remains to be seen, and that's in her hands and the team of students. Can we just go to that second to last slide, back to the screen share?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry for doing this to you.
Oh, no.
Really.
Almost there.
I know slide sharing under pressure is no joke.
Rachel, pulling that up, this is Miriam. I was going to say that I think that dress code issue can also needs to be seen as a proxy, because that's an easy way for students to acknowledge the discrepancies. Whereas, if they know they've done something wrong and they're supposed to get in trouble, but they're complaining about the degree of their trouble, they have less standing. So I think that one way to think about that also is that yes, it may be real, but it also may be representative and the easiest one for students to grab onto in that sense. And
I really appreciate you saying that. I agree. It's a proxy issue. There are so many other issues embedded in the dress code one, and solving for X, or at least making space to figure out with students how to solve for X, and that issue would go a long way. Yes. So I think we skipped one slide. Can we go back one?
Yes.
Thanks. There we go. So I wanted to note that, what's next for the AWARE work here. Here's a picture of Rita Daniels, the principal, who's being lovingly held in one of her students' hands with the research team at Moss. And we're hoping that some of the schools, and we would support, and we've done at some of the schools, teacher, parent, and administrator shareback sessions, shareback sessions with site-based decision-making councils, where the student researchers can present. Again, student council, opportunities for student councils to identify and implement actionable solutions, and hopefully an opportunity to repeat the survey every year or two and compare results to measure improvement over time. These are all ways to not only support the feedback loop around mental health and well-being of students, but to support student agency, which, as we know, is an element of mental health resilience, right? Okay, next slide. We're just about done here. So just what's next in terms of the Student Voice Team's youth-led education research. Just so people know, the team is doing a lot of work in Kentucky, adapting the climate audit process to look at issues around assessment and accountability, how we measure and support student success. We did some work like that at Frankfort High School. We're going to be expanding that in a few other schools, and we see assessment and accountability issues, testing and grading, for lay people, we see that as a central component of a holistic approach to education, which absolutely is related to climate and culture. We're doing something similar focused on career and technical education. We have national and state level partners for both of these things, working with the National Urban League and on assessment accountability. And we're also working with KnowledgeWorks Advanced CTE on some of these other components. And we're also going to be releasing some work we've been doing related to the state of civics and civic engagement among young people, and connected to the work we've been doing for the last almost 2 years around revisiting the constitutional promises to K-12 students embedded in the 1989 Rose decision, and that's called the Rose Revival. That also fueled some of the work we did in the last couple months around Amendment 2, which some of you may have followed, but the research fuels the advocacy work, most definitely. And it's the ultimate expression of student agency, we think. Very last slide is just the window dressing. Ta-da! Okay, we can stop the screen share. I don't even know if we have time for questions, but I'm open to them if there are any more, because I know there's still a pretty full agenda.
We definitely have time for questions.
Okay.
Hi, this is Katie Pullman with Midwest PBIS. Rachel, thank you for sharing your process and all the work. I don't know if it's as much of a question, but just kind of elevating this piece of, I think, how critical this perception data is, and being able to triangulate with the student outcome data and our fidelity data. And in my mind, this is that, like, maybe not the last piece, but another component of how do we look at that all together. And I think, don't think it's a direct question, but maybe just a piece to kind of elevate to the group to say, how are we continuing to then support school teams, district teams to utilize this type of perception data, if it's done through this whole process, or how else are we getting student perception data? And then how are we supporting them to use that data in that and to inform their action plans? I think the biggest piece for me is I oftentimes see schools, completing fidelity tools, like to what extent are we implementing Tier 1 PBIS? And our teen data might say we're implementing really highly, but if 25% of students are still saying they're not feeling respected at school, are we truly implementing with fidelity? So I think this is that other piece to me that really helps fill that in. And then how are we helping guide those teams back to, okay, where do we improve? What's our action plan for improving how we're implementing trauma-informed PBIS, our mental health supports in schools? So not really a question, just kind of a thought. And how do we keep building out the supports from the state team to help schools do that better?
No, I appreciate your articulating that, Katie. And I always think, like, in this work too, and especially just being on the calls with the AWARE team, we're all of us are grappling with like how to communicate what we find. This incredible research, it's a treasure trove that KDE has, and we're amassing too. And then the thinking is, who are the targeted audiences? It does matter. We do want to target an academic and professional audience, but there's a real need to share data back with lay people too, and the people who provided the data. They own the data in so many ways, right? So figuring out ways to do that. And for us, that becomes a decision every time we do a study. We have to consider who the targeted audience is, what degree of academic rigor we want to apply. We're always hewing to ethical standards, like from the IRB process as much as possible. But sometimes we make a determination we're not going to go through IRB approval for this. This is our target audience is the general public, and it's a storytelling. It errs on the side of a storytelling project versus an academic publication. We can do both. We prove we do both, but we actually have to prioritize one over the other at different points. When I think of the youth risk behavior survey data, which I look at all the time, and even the school report card data, we're sharing that with students on our team all the time. They're using that to help frame and tell stories. They're writing across our journalism platforms. It's really powerful stuff, and we know that it just doesn't get the public attention it really deserves, because it's that good and it's that interesting and it's that rich. So I think that's a challenge for all of us to think about. We already have the research and the data, like how do we bring it to life? And sometimes that involves a lot of weird, it's a creative guerrilla tactics to bring it to life, and a real intentionality on engaging the public around data points.
I have a question about your future plans for opt-in. So I think we've heard from all of our LEAs today about, and from you about the struggle of having opt-in surveys. Do you all have any tips and tricks you'd like to share, or ways that you plan to shift your efforts to get more signatures moving forward, just as a way to kind of brainstorm and think through how we might work through that as a team?
Yeah, well, one thing the Kentucky Student Voice team does when we're doing survey work outside of schools, we're independent of the public schools. That helps us. We like to work with schools, but we're insiders and outsiders all at once. When we've promoted things across our networks beyond schools with community-based organizations, that's been a way to get good data outside of schools. When we go within schools, it's school by school. So I don't imagine we're going to be able to do our statewide studies at the level we've been able to do in the past, because we've had teachers and administrators helping us disseminate surveys within schools, and we've worked with community groups at the same time. And now it's just clear that there's an effort to stop this from happening in schools, to stop this kind of work. We thought, okay, we'll have students as researchers. They're going to be able to sell this to their school community and get parent responses. I don't know. It remains to be seen. It's definitely a challenge, and it's really unfortunate, especially when students are leading the research in their own schools. Like, why do we need that kind of a barrier? It seems silly to me. I don't know. Other people have ideas of things that have worked for you?
Question. This is Miriam. So one of the things that we know is that there's a pretty long on-ramp for doing this school climate survey work. So that's something that 3 districts really need to know. You need a lot of planning time. There's a lot of hoops to get through with administration, but also on the ground getting the kids ready. So it's something that give yourself enough time. But I'm wondering, Rachel, if the on-ramp now needs to include much more attention to the student chatter and the student preparation of the students, so that if the students got really excited about the idea that they could have their voice heard, and maybe that's by share, I don't know exactly what that would look like, but they
it's a marketing job.
But I do think that it would require some time. And so,
yeah.
So having watched now actually 4 or 5 districts do this, my advice to the 3 of you that are maybe thinking about this for the future is absolutely do it, but also make sure you have adequate planning time. And it might even span over multiple school years. So you might start planning this year with the idea of doing the survey next year. And that might give enough time to somehow generate some of this excitement about it, so that the students could pester their parents for the please let me participate in this. You know, there's also a question that I have which is, I know it does ask some questions around bullying and feelings and those kinds of things, but I wonder, I mean, other climate surveys happen in the school without parental opt-in, right? So climate surveys as a whole are not really in the category requiring opt-in. My suspicion, and Megan confirmed, is that board attorneys are saying make sure, especially with an outside entity. But there might be worth putting up a little fuss sometimes. I don't know. I didn't say that.
Also, for schools that are being intentional about their parent engagement, for everything from chronic absenteeism to, you know, the PTA to other things like this, you know, kind of survey should be, you know, integrated into that that plan for parent engagement, I think, because that way you can hype it up to them to say, you know, we want to improve the school. We want to hear from your students how we can improve, you know, and then just, you know, take that approach in addition to some of the other challenges, and just let them know up front, like, this is what this survey is about. You know, ask your kids if they're, you know, for the permission slip or however it is that they're, you know, getting that consent form completed, and just kind of like Miriam said, sort of priming the pump before you actually roll out the survey, both with the students and with the parents.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And again, in our case, this is a study that is different than all the rest. It was designed by students themselves, and it's going to be analyzed by students themselves, and it's going to be shared back by students themselves. So it's different. We know there's other climate surveys that are important, but this is the most in some ways. That's the sales pitch.
Can you say, because I think it was just eyeballing it, it looked about like slightly under 10% response rate, given the total population of the students. Is that typical for what you've seen?
No, it's always been over 50% in schools. I'm saying it's the opt-in issue that caused a lot of problems for us. And, you know, and middle school is a little bit different than high school because I don't know, it was a little bit harder to get the permission slips out and back. And we even had a Spanish translation version, but there's like 50 other languages spoken in the school, so that wasn't any good. So no, that was low for us. It still gave us enough data to work with the research team, and it was rich enough to share back. But no, we typically do get about half the entire school population.
And that
yeah.
Since the opt-in legislation went into effect, you've still gotten higher than that.
No, this was the first one we've done since that legislation. So it suggests that there might be some issues that we definitely need to address going forward. And I don't know if they can be overcome, but I do like the idea of thinking about the parent piece, especially in some of the schools that we know are really, really leaning into the community schools and parent engagement stuff. So that is a great idea.
I think also, I know that the Student Voice team has been very active in trying to present some of their findings to the legislature at different points in time. And, if there's an opportunity for them to hear some of the results and also the implications of how the legislative language has changed your ability to do this important work, that's maybe something to.
Yeah, that's a great idea. The seed has been planted. Thank you.
Considering, those are part of the facts of your study.
Yep. I love that. Thank you. Okay, seeing as there are no more questions, I can't dismiss the class, but I will mute myself now. Thank you, everybody, for giving us a little space to share this very exciting stuff that AWARE has made happen. You should be aware.
Yeah, thank you so much. And with that, we will move on to our partner updates. HDI, I know you've given us most of your update. If there's anything else you'd like to share, you're welcome to, but
I think we're good for now.
Great. Is there anyone from REACH today? No. CTAC, I believe Dr. Sprang, are you still on?
Yes. So we have launched our trauma-informed practices for educators and school personnel learning collaborative today. It's actively going on now. I just checked with them and we had a good turnout. Looks like about 120 people. We're doing this hybrid. So we have, it's in person in Lexington at KDEC, and then a hybrid connection throughout the rest of the state. And this particular learning collaborative is scheduled to go on through April of 2025. So this is just learning session number 1. Also wanted to just mention, earlier, I guess it was last year, had mentioned to you that we have a randomized control trial of a child sex trafficking prevention program that we have rolled out in the state. We're in the last year of this launch. And so, we are looking to get schools to enroll in, it's called See Stop Now. And so if you've got connections to a middle school in Kentucky that you think would be interested in this, if you could have them reach out to me, I can put my email address in the chat, and we can, give them some information, and we can see if they happen to be in a control or intervention county. But either way, they get some good free training on preventing child sex trafficking using a bystander approach. So just a little bit of a reminder about that, and this will be the last year to be able to take advantage of that. And that's all I have. I'm going to drop my email address in the chat.
Thank you so much. Rachel, is there anything else you would like to share about what's going on with? Okay, good deal.
I'm overexposed.
Any of our co-ops? I know that we have.
I'm from GREC. I'm a PBIS consultant, and we're continuing our work coaching with PBIS, doing a lot of walkthroughs and supporting schools with completing the tier fidelity inventory by the end of the school year, and working greatly with my KDE friends to do that. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Do we have anyone from the Department of Family Resource Youth Services Centers?
Yes. We just completed our second NCO for the new coordinators that were funded for our reconfigured centers. So we had about 73 of those coordinators. And then we just completed the Northern Kentucky Regional Youth Mental Health Summit, and the Youth Service Centers coordinators are very instrumental in helping with that event. Very successful, lots of student voice, and Christy Jeffords from our co-op in KCES does a great job there. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Betty, is that a model that you think should be looked at in other regions? Because
Absolutely. Elizabeth visited and she had lots of great things to say, or Elizabeth Freeland, and it's amazing. So Christy Jeffords would be a person that I would contact. I can give you her email address. I can put it in the chat if you're interested.
KPFC. Good deal. WSCC.
Well, Rachel, kind enough to mention the Youth First Behavior Survey, and I apologize if this is a repeat because I get confused with all the meetings, but the 2023 YRBS data is on the KDE website. Just search YRBS in the search bar, it'll get you there. So we do have all of that data available. And then as of July 1, University of Kentucky's Kiprick, Kentucky Injury Prevention Research Center, they are the new funded entity that will be administering the Youth Risk Behavior Survey for the next 5 years. They'll be the ones that administer that. KDE will no longer, but we'll still put the data on the website and everything. I think that's the main thing.
Awesome, thank you. And Miriam, do you want to give enough?
Is there anybody else online from DBIF? No. Lots happening. We're participating in 3 policy academies related to school mental health. So really looking at what from the behavioral health side of things we can be doing to support schools and become more collaborative partners to enhance resources for students, families, and staff. I think that would probably be the big thing. Lots of work happening with the Garrett Lee Smith grant, which probably Megan could speak to better than I, but just, I think a lot of both boots on the ground and policy level conversations happening to try to enhance how we do this work and meet the needs.
Thank you. Are there any questions about partner updates or LEA updates that are outstanding? If anyone else from KDE would like to share any updates. All right, good deal. As a friendly reminder, our 2025 state leadership team meetings have been scheduled. So the next one will be February 4th, that from 10 to 12, all of them, that will be virtual. May 6th in person, August 5th virtual, and November 11th in person. So those are the 2025 dates. If you have not joined our ISF, Youth and Family Engagement, Mental Health Awareness and Outreach, or Sustainability Committees, and you would like to, those are scheduled separately. So on the agenda, you will see Elizabeth Freeland's email. Please reach out to her and she will make sure you get on the correct listserv. And as our kind of closing circle today, if you could leave in the chat, or if anyone in the room would like to share something you hope will get better in the new year. Yeah, same.
I don't know. I didn't. School funding.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I heard.
That's
And mental health funding.
Yep. I'm also hopeful that lots of the stuff we're doing around parent opt-in will continue to work. and improve the kids that we can reach. All right. And with that, thank you all for joining us today.